Hi, and welcome to the Brisbane Professionals Podcast. This is a podcast brought to you by SMS Law, going through the legal secrets that will benefit you and your clients, as well as having a little bit of fun as we go. This podcast is designed to educate you on, number one, complicated legal terms that we will explain in an easy to understand manner. Two, to understand why you do things from a legal perspective in your business. And three, to help you develop a plan for the future success of your business. Our mission is to help empower small to medium-sized businesses around the world to get access to legal advice so that they can help build their communities and make the world a better place. Did you know that any business owner is on average 7 months away from losing everything? That is the average time that it takes from a successful business to fold when an aspect of their business is not set up correctly. This podcast is all about empowering you and your business with knowledge and tools to ensure that that doesn't happen to you or to your clients. Let's begin, shall we?
Hi everyone, welcome to Brisbane Professional Podcast. My name is Craig Mason. I have with me, as always, Mr. Jeremy Stratton. Say hello to everyone, please, Jeremy.
Hi everyone, hope you're having a great day.
Here we are again in the podcast, and we are touching on a topic of litigation, something that's a big one for any business. And as we've said in previous shows, we talk about the costs and being commercially minded. So there are a lot of hidden costs, and there are a lot of hard costs for it. You need to weigh all that up when deciding or resolving a litigation. What we wanted to touch on today is going back before all the hidden costs and all those sorts of things, and ways to actually avoid litigation in the first place. So the obvious benefit of that is you don't have those costs and you don't have those stresses. So we've come up with 5 ways to avoid litigation. There's many more, but we've got 5 for today's show. So Jeremy, do you want to kick off with the first one that we've come up with?
Yeah, the first one is limit your liability in contracts. So great contracts make great relationships, and that's because they actually set out and determine exactly what people need to do. A poor contract will open yourself up to litigation and can actually make you liable for all sorts of things that you haven't thought of. So whenever you're entering into an agreement with someone, make sure that it's contracted properly, documented in a contract properly. And if you're not sure, get your lawyer to review it. Get someone, have someone else review it. No one is perfect the first time. So getting someone else to review it, especially a lawyer, can help limit that liability if you do it properly with the contract. Craig, the second one.
Second one is about getting some insurance, and depending on the costs, get quite a lot of it. The more insurance you've got, is your policy against litigation. So if something was to happen and the policy kicks in, then obviously the insurance company then takes over and pays it out or whatever it might be. So it's very important to look at your insurances. We'd encourage everyone as part of that to get a insurance broker. And if you're in a particular industry, get one that's specialised in that area, to make sure you've got as much insurance as you can possibly get to cover all sorts of scenarios in your industry. It's important to have that. Whilst it's a cost, obviously, it could be a lot cheaper for the premiums than it is for the costs of a litigation or the costs for resolving that litigation even as well. So important to have a look at all your insurances and make sure you've got as much as you can. Number 3, Jeremy.
Yeah, number 3 is to limit your liability, but this time structurally. And so when we're talking about structurally, what we're talking about is the companies and entities that actually own properties and own businesses. So if you can silo as much of your businesses against what you own, then that will help you to limit your liability structurally. There's many ways to be right with this. There are many different ways to do it and get some advice. The number one thing that I see professionals make the mistake of is having that they think that they can separate liability through a structure with different trusts, but with the same trustee. So you could have Jeremy Stratton as trustee for multiple different trusts. What they fail to realise is that the trustee of a trust is primarily liable for the debts of that trust. And without getting too much into the legalities of it, it's better to have either separate trustees or companies as trustees of those trusts, especially if they're going to limit their liability. So I just wanted to cover off that one because I think it's a really important one. But really get advice around your structure to make sure that the structure is right to protect yourself moving forward. Craig, number 4.
Yeah, number 4 is about just knowing the legal environment in which you're operating in. So you might be entering into an agreement perhaps with someone overseas or in a different state or something along those lines. And there's different laws that might apply to that particular country or something along those lines. So make sure you're aware of all of that, and your agreement that you've got sort of is tailored towards that, and you've got jurisdiction clauses and those sorts of things in there. So if anything does happen, you can rely on that. And just being aware of other legislation that's in place that may govern the sorts of transactions that you're entering into. Aware of changes in that legislation, those sorts of things, to make sure you're up to date, so you know exactly what environment you're playing in and which you're operating, so you don't get caught out for anything when it comes to litigation. And if you've got all those things in place, then that helps to avoid it in the sense that you've complied with everything and you haven't breached anything, or you know exactly what's happening. So important to know the legal environment in which you operate. The last one we came up with today, Jeremy, to avoid litigation.
Yeah, and the last one is to maintain a good filing system. So often we see business owners who don't have copies of their contracts, don't have copies of their of correspondence, say emails, or don't have file notes of conversations. It is so important that you document everything. We're putting this podcast out in July 2020. Australia, the world have just been through the corona crisis, and as part of that we did a webinar series, Calm is Contagious, and one of the things I know you said a lot, Craig, was to write down everything, document everything, because who knows what's going to happen. And I think that's good advice just in general in business, isn't it, to actually have everything written down and have it filed away so that you can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important if you make any changes to anything or whatever it might be, that you document it and file it in a way that you're going to be able to find it too. I guess nowadays, scanning and saving it somewhere on a cloud, is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I think that's the simplest way. Give it a name that you're going to remember to search for it. Give it something obvious so that you can just search for the file name and you can find it. Same with emails. You can do the same thing. So just maintain a good filing system, whatever that is. We use Dropbox. I think that's great. And you can use something similar. All right, Craig, that's it.
All right. Excellent. Well, that's our 5 ways to avoid litigation. As I said, that's not an exhaustive list. There are many other ways. If you've got any questions about that or want to raise something with us, please get in touch. And the way to do that is like us on like the SMS Law page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter or search for us personally on LinkedIn. Connect with us through that. If you could also, as a favour to the podcast, rate and review the podcast on whatever channels you've been receiving it. That helps us to get the podcast out there, get more listeners, and start building that Brisbane professional community. So, yeah, that's it for us today. Thanks for joining us.
See you next